Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch 2020, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation Podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Daemon.
Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox Podcast Unlocked.
Howdy, Daemon.
And today we are joined by Bo Moore, IGN's executive tech editor. Bo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Daemon.
And today we finally have some PlayStation 5 news, some new information to share after a couple weeks of Xbox dominating the headlines. Sony has provided a deep dive teardown video of the PlayStation 5 where a Sony employee has taken the whole next-gen console apart and really given us a look at what the insides are like. So, Jonathon, let's begin with you. What would you say are the big takeaways of this big PlayStation 5 teardown today?
Yeah,
this
for
week?
Sure. The teardown is definitely something that people have been looking forward to for a while, especially ever since the Mark Cerny talk back earlier this year, kind of about the SSD and all of the tech side of what we're expecting with the PlayStation 5. From this video, I think some of the biggest takeaways, both for consumers of whatnot and what they can do with the system, is one, you shouldn't probably be tearing it down to this extent, which is why Sony has produced this wonderful video for us. But some of the biggest takeaways is one, this console is huge. This is probably the best comparison to a human we have seen in an official PlayStation video of the size of the PS5 to a person. And in the video, it is most of a person's torso tall. So it is quite a big console, but that seems by design with what Sony's doing. They've apparently been working on this design since 2015 or so. And at least from my point of view, so much of what's gone into the design of it really feels in response to one of the biggest complaints I think most of us have had with PlayStation this generation, is that console gets really warm and really loud as a result of it. And so everything about the design of this console seems to be a way of mitigating noise and mitigating warmth and mitigating dust getting trapped in places it shouldn't be trapped. So that really seems to be one of the biggest focal points here. I think some of the other interesting things we saw is, one, the two large white side panels on the console can seemingly come off pretty easily. That doesn't seem like an issue if consumers take those off. And if anything, I think that speaks to maybe modding and special editions and things that may come down the line. But definitely, I think the biggest thing here is that this thing is designed specifically by Sony to make sure they never hear the phrase, "My PlayStation sounds like a jet engine," ever again.
I'm guilty of saying that exact phrase.
Me too.
Bo, I'd like to get a little bit of your insight on how it looks like Sony is trying to keep the PlayStation 5 running cool and quiet.
If this PlayStation 5 is not really quiet, I don't know what to say, because the fan on this thing is huge. It is 120 millimeter by 45 millimeter thick fan, which is that's like twice as thick as my case fans in my PC. Granted, I have 3 or 4 of those, but still, that is a huge fan. Also, the heatsink is pretty gigantic. It's a large copper heat pipe with a bunch of heat sinks coming off of it. They say that it has the same cooling ability as a vapor chamber, which is a kind of method of cooling that you'll see on like a lot of thinner laptops that also get really hot. It's looks pretty impressive, but we haven't heard this thing actually turned on yet. So I really hope that it's quiet. It really, really needs to be, because the PS4 was very loud.
And what's definitely interesting is, and I think they're trying to really drive that point home until we get them in our homes, is, before they even break down the system, they show the entire back of it is exhaust ports. The entire front, like the siding around the sort of front panel, is exhaust ports. There are specific dust catching places that can be vacuumed to avoid dust buildup in too many places, which has been awful to try to clean the dust out of my PS4 Pro with the layered design that they currently have. So this definitely seems like a lot is in response to things that have been complaints with the PS4, but we don't know until we'll get it in our homes.
Well, speaking of in our homes, Ryan, you have, of course, been living with the Xbox Series X for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
And you were saying that in your tests so far, of course, you haven't been able to test a big, AAA next-gen game yet, but in your tests so far with games like Red Dead Redemption 2, you found the Xbox Series X has been running pretty cool and quietly?
Yeah, thus far, with the legacy titles, it is whisper quiet. I mean, it is just, I could not be more impressed with the acoustics of it. It is almost dead silent. and I'm looking forward to getting some actual, optimized for Series X software on there to really put the GPU under full load and then see if it's still just as quiet as it's been with Red Dead 2 and some Xbox One games. But yeah, so far so good in the acoustics department. It's funny to me how they've almost flipped, Sony and Microsoft, with the hardware, where the original with Microsoft, they wanted to make sure they did not have a repeat of the Red Ring of Death from the 360. So the original Xbox One, if you remember, was pretty big, that VCR Xbox One, but it had that giant fan on top. And sure enough, those never had any thermal problems. And then as time has now gone on, the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X have been smaller and smaller and still super quiet, and overheating has not been a problem. So yeah, Microsoft's really done a great job on the engineering side with regard to thermals and acoustics on their console. And it's great to see Sony now. I mean, I don't care if it's big as long as it is quiet and cool and is going to be reliably awesome. I actually measured it against the Series X earlier today, just the tape measure, because it's the official measurement as designated by that PS5 Teardown video is the equivalent of, I believe it was 15.35 inches, basically 15 and a third inches. And it's taller. It's a little above the actual entertainment center, the top of that entertainment center itself. So I'll be having to put it up on top. It won't fit inside there the way that the Xbox Series X nicely does, but I'm totally fine with that if it's going to just be awesomely quiet and cool. I have no problem with it.
Sure. It's funny you mentioned Xbox and Sony flipping sides and also trying to find a place to fit these next-gen consoles. Xbox was able to take its own little lighthearted jab at PlayStation today after PlayStation demonstrated how you're able to put your PS5 into a horizontal mode. And it's apparently a little bit more difficult than the Xbox Series X. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, per the teardown video, the PS5 can be flipped to a horizontal orientation, but you've got to unscrew the base stand, make some, flip some stuff around, and actually, it is a process. Whereas, the Series X just has 4 little rubber feet over on, as you're looking at it, the right side, and you just lay it down. Simple as that. So, yeah, of course, that is a play on the 2013, the infamous.
Yes.
Game sharing video that Sony just slaughtered Microsoft with at E3 2013. So, they're clearly having fun with it as well they should. And I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Jonathan, does it seem like it's going to be annoying to have to unscrew something, a part of your PS5 to move it from vertical to horizontal positions?
I mean, honestly, probably beyond the first time where I try it, not really. I totally think that jab was, in the right. I thought it was funny. I laughed at it when I saw it. It is totally in fairness, especially when PlayStation did something very similar with a different technique the last generation around. It's only fair to see this sort of funny back and forth. But, having watched the teardown and looked a little bit at the stand stuff, some of the things that really point out to me is, one, at least you can take it off, which as of right now, the Xbox Series X stand you can't remove. So it does have that little circle on the bottom that'll just stay there as far as we know. So it's nice that you can at least remove it. I actually think the PlayStation 5 looks better on its side than the Xbox Series X, looks on its side. The Series X to me just kind of looks like a horizontal slab, whereas the PS5 almost seems probably more designed to be horizontal than it does vertical. So, beyond the having to take the screw out, it's nice that the stand is included. In generations past, you'd have to buy the stand on its own. It was like this accessory you'd have to buy otherwise. There's a nice little built-in slot to stick the screw in after you've removed it from the PS5. They thought through that whole process of it. So at least it is an extra step that I wish I didn't have to do, but at least it was well thought through when they made it. But having to remove it or decide which way I'm going to do it, especially seeing if it can fit underneath my TV stand, that's going to be the real test of whether I keep it vertical or horizontal.
Yeah. Now, Bo, we're going to be able to expand the hard drives in both the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. But is it looking like it's going to be easier on the Xbox Series?
It's kind of a little bit easier on both versions for different reasons. On the Series X, it is easier to actually get something in there because all it is just basically plugging a memory card in the back. However, right now there's only one proprietary card that will work with the Series X. There may be more coming out, but right now there's just the one. It's I think $230.
220, yeah.
220, excuse me. On the PlayStation 5 though, there's a wider variety of what you can use, because basically any M.2 PCIe 4.0 SSD, which granted that is a kind of high bar and that's not every single SSD that's out there, but any one that meets that standard will work. You can just go out and buy one off the shelf and plug it in. However, in order to actually do that, it is a little bit harder of a process because you have to pop off the side panel and unscrew a little panel there and actually install it in. But as far as, as long as you have a screwdriver, it's not super complicated.
Especially not for someone who's used to modding PCs. Do you think the PS5 is sort of looking to be more mod friendly than the Xbox Series X?
It does a little bit, because in the teardown video they showed how those white side panels, they actually just pop off without you don't even need any tools or screwdrivers or anything to get in there. It's just a slide and pop little situation, and yeah, that makes it easy to get those off. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of either custom people or probably even some officially branded side panels with different colors, maybe probably different game branded. I'm sure there will be not a Halo one, but there will be maybe like a God of War themed PS5, I'm sure. And so that makes it really easy to change them out. And then for the people who want to say paint or do other type of moddings and different changes to their PS5, then just being able to pop those panels off, do whatever you want to them and stick them right back on, that makes it really easy to do.
Somebody's doing matte black on day one for sure. That's going to be like one of the first cool ones that somebody does.
Yeah. I saw some IGN commenters hoping that this will be the next deluxe edition pack-in, custom, panels for the PS5. And I think that sounds like a pretty cool idea. One more quick news update this week before we get to our polls. Jonathan, there's been a lot of talk recently about save transfers with the PS5 and just sort of in general how Xbox is starting to seem a little bit more gamer friendly with a lot of their approaches to next gen consoles. You wrote an op-ed about PS4 to PS5 save transfers recently. What do we need to know about how this is working?
So yeah, right now with save transfers from the PS4 to PS5, there is a really strange situation going on because Sony hasn't announced any sort of official policy for how those transfers are going to work. We've reached out to them for comment. We haven't gotten any back yet. But as of right now, what we know is with games that have a PS5 upgraded version of a PS4 game, there seem to be a developer by developer cases about whether or not your saves will carry over or if they're going to have to start a new save if you want to play the PS5 version. This came about because we got word that Dirt 5, Maneater, and Yakuza Like a Dragon, if you want to play the PS5 specific versions of those games and you're upgrading from PS4, you will have to just start a new game. Codemasters behind Dirt 5 said if this changes, they'll let players know, which implies there might be something that there either discussions with Sony or something in the process that they're going to be able to change, but for now we don't know what the exact reasoning is. The case with Maneater is you can't bring over your save states, but it will sort of keep track of the fact that you are getting a free upgrade in that case. And Yakuza, which is actually coming out months after the Xbox Series X version, it's coming to PS5 in March of next year, you won't be able to bring your saves over if you've been playing it on PS4. Whereas games like Call of Duty and Marvel's Avengers, you'll be able to bring your data over to the PS5 version. So that's a strange situation that we don't really know the exact reasoning for right now. And then, of course, when it comes to backward compatible games, Sony hasn't detailed how you're going to be transferring saves over, whether it's going to be cloud saves or if you're just going to be able to migrate the saves from one hard drive to the SSD. All of that situation right now is unclear, but at least this teardown video that we got this week seems to imply we're going to be getting some answers to the PS5 soon. Sony
definitely has the better exclusives, but more and more, it seems like Xbox is a little bit more convenient, a little bit more consumer-friendly place to play. Ryan, I don't know about you. I'm starting to see not like a title shift, but just a sort of a general shift in sentiment. Much less negative attitudes towards Xbox recently, and a little bit more openness to maybe considering Xbox as if not their number one platform, a secondary console in the next generation. Are you starting to see any of this as well, Ryan?
Yeah, I would really agree with that. I mean, it's something that, to Xbox's credit, they've been working on for years. I mean, when Phil Spencer, I had to go back and look. Phil Spencer was named head of Xbox in March of 2014. So he's 6.5 years into the job. One of the first major things he did was initiate the backwards compatibility program, and that's been growing and getting better ever since. And of course, things like now smart delivery with the new console and all these, of course, Game Pass being a big one, and all these things kind of individually, you don't go, yeah, man, I'm totally getting an Xbox now. But collectively, you start to take a 10,000 foot view of it and go, whoa, wait a second, they're doing some really good stuff here. And I think the perception change that you're starting to see, Damon, that I agree is out there as well. I think the Bethesda acquisition really kind of just took that slow movement and just shoved it forward. Just gave it a real good push forward that everybody instantly noticed, like, whoa, okay, wait a second. They're doing a lot of great stuff here. So, I mean, the games are still the thing at the end of the day that are going to bring people to your platform. Microsoft did that with the 360. They didn't do that with the Xbox One, and Sony very much has over this generation with PS4. And Microsoft's their games are still a ways out. The Bethesda acquisition didn't change that, but the long game on Xbox, I think, is what people are starting to see with all these initiatives that are there today. And then, coming down the road, you've got not just Halo, Gears, and Forza, but you've got Fable, you've got Avowed, and then you've got all the Bethesda titles like Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, whatever the third Doom game is, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's a thing that was never going to happen overnight, but it's starting to happen now.
It's definitely making things more interesting, and I think there's definitely a lot less negative sentiment going into the launch of Xbox Series X than there was going into the launch of Xbox One back in 2013. Real quick before we go, this week we've got the results of last week's poll. We asked you, how much do you plan on spending this November on next-gen gaming? Not too surprising, the number one result was $500 to $1,000, considering $500 is the price for the main models of each console. Not too surprising there. However, we have an interesting poll for you for next week. We want to know, what is your dream next-gen console color? Is it red, gold, clear? You want to be able to look into the guts. Atomic purple, like the old GameCube? Make sure to vote at IGN.com. We'll share the results with you on next week's episode. Lightning round. What's your dream console color to my guests? Jonathan?
I want a Miles Morales-styled PS5. Does that count?
Wait, that's not a color. Miles Morales color?
Yeah, the red and black, like the two-tone Spider-Man suit. Like
you're starting to get it pretty fancy. Ryan?
If you've seen the sort of teardown of the Series X that it was Austin Evans, the tech YouTuber, did back in early March, where it's like the motherboard split into two pieces and it's got the like custom vapor chamber. Like my new PC that I just had built recently has a glass window on the side, so I can see all the cool colors and stuff going on inside. I think a glass Series X to see all that proprietary neat stuff in. I mean, it would obviously be very fragile, but yeah, I would be down with a transparent Xbox Series X. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that does sound cool. Bo?
There's no answer other than atomic purple.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Although do it like a slick black console. I think that's hard to beat, going all the way back to the Sega Genesis. Sleek. Looks very classy. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch 2020. Thank you to Ryan, Jonathan, and Bo. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern with more news and rumors on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. We'll see you then.